Lately, I've been feeling creatively stuck. I try to switch things up in each episode, both with building and editing, but sometimes I come up empty. Creative stagnation is tough because it makes you second guess whether you've hit your limit, so in this video, I'm breaking out of my comfort zone and trying a building style I've never tried before. Sometimes the best way to grow is to take a risk, so let's see how this goes. Anyways, welcome back to So as I'm sure a lot of you can guess, there's a lot of behind the scenes work that goes on when you make videos here on YouTube. And as often as I can, I try to pull back the curtain and show as much of the process as I possibly can. And I've done that before by showing you guys how I made this forest with Axiom. And I'll even show you guys what I have today, a little sneak peek. Of course, it starts raining right when I'm trying to record, but I do plan all of my builds in creative before I decide to build them, and sometimes it can make it difficult to figure out placement of the builds. But I had my build prepared in creative as I usually do, and I came on to the world to see where I thought it would look good, and this area, this forest that we built 2 episodes back, immediately caught my attention, and I was like, yep, this is the place for the build. And it's kind of like a cabin already. It kind of looks like a cabin, and a cabin in the woods kind of vibe is something that sounded really cool to me. But yes, it does mean that we finally have to remove these farms that have been here pretty much since the beginning of the series, but they're an eyesore now, and obviously in the way of what I want to build today. So yes, I am gonna get to doing that. I got a few more resources to collect for this, and I gotta shape the terrain just a little bit more, and then we gonna make build. But let's go ahead and talk about what I have planned for today. So as you can see here, I have a couple of gradients that contrast highly in their value. So we go from really dark to really light, and this is because I want to play with something called light baking today. And if you're unfamiliar with that term, light baking is essentially building in shading and lighting into the textures, and this is actually a popular technique in the building community, but I've never done it before, so I wanted to give it a try. And I'm really excited because I feel like this build is unique for me. I'm really pushing the boundaries with how I do shape and also texturing, so I'm really excited to show you guys the final outcome. But that's enough yapping for now. So build gonna be cool, build be hard make, build make now. This might be my favorite block palette I've used for a build. I just love how seamlessly they all blend in with each other. But yes, let's take a look at this build now. Again, my goal was to do some light baking and create some fake shadows. And the way to accomplish that was to first put an imaginary light source in the sky. So for this build, it would be up and to the right. And so that's why the shadows are all here on the left side. So of course, we're using blocks with low color value as the shadows and high color value as the highlights, and this creates a very apparent contrast between the darks and lights to make the lighting obvious. Now I will admit the banners do look kind of messy on the roof, especially here on the side. You can see how they don't really connect to the walls, but there was no other way that I could think of handling this situation, so I think that was the best that I could do there. I think it looks good on the chimney though, so I'm happy with how that looks. Now on some areas of the build, we do have shadows and highlights on the same surface, and the way that I came up with where to place the shadow lines was I just turned shaders on and followed the actual shadow line that it casts. And of course I did it at a different time than it is currently, so it doesn't look like how it did when I was creating it. So that covers the light baking portion of the build. Of course, it was the main feature of this build, but we'll go ahead and take a look at some of the other details now. For starters, I really like how this door turned out. The walls help give it this sunken feeling, and it feels really cozy. We've also got this window here using backwards placed banners, and you can place signs on the bottom half, and these sticks match up perfectly with these of the banner, and it creates a really cool shape there. And then we've got a sign on that window too. I really like this chimney that we got here. I had the rest of the shape down when I was designing it in creative, and it felt like it needed something over here to balance it. So I just threw this organic shape here, and it worked really well. So I'm really happy with how that came out. Inside there is no interior yet, but I want to do something with it here. It's really nice in here as well. It's definitely a lot more spacious than the inside of my builds tend to be, so I feel like I do have to make use of it. Taking a step back here, we can get a more whole view of the build, and I think it helps display the shadows better. And it was, again, a bit out of my comfort zone to do this, but I am pretty happy with how it turned out. But this is not the only thing we're gonna do here. I think I want to add a few things out here at the front, some other details, just to create a little bit more of an environment for this place. The build is nice, but it needs a little bit more surroundings to help cement it into this world. And one thing that I definitely want to do is to start creating a pathway between some of my other builds. Right now, they kind of feel a little bit fragmented, and I think having a pathway will help connect them better. So I'm thinking I will have a dirt path that starts here and makes its way over here to these builds and also goes over here a bit. So that is the plan, but I'll go ahead and get started on working on that now. So as you guys saw from the time lapse, we now have some new pathways, and these pathways just help to connect some of these more isolated builds together. And it's also something that just encourages walking around in the world as opposed to just using rockets or ender pearls. And I'll go ahead and pop into free cam so we can get a better look at where all the pathways lead to. So we've got it coming from the village area to this new build, and then to my main house, and also some of the first houses we made in the village. I do plan on expanding it to some of these builds over here as well, but I'm not sure how I want to do that just yet, so I'm going to hold off on doing it. But coming back to the main build, we have a few extra details, starting with this wheelbarrow right here, and then coming down the side, we have this stack of logs. And shout out to Builds by Zay because he did this in his world and I really liked it, so I thought I would add it in my world here. He came up with using some moss carpet with this texture to give it a look like the wood is rotting over time. And then I decided to just add some of these campfires on top because they make it look like smaller singular logs. And I also tried to use some logs that look like they're from the trees from this forest here as well. And then I also put some more coarse dirt and rooted dirt underneath the logs so that it looks like They've been sitting here for a while and the grass around it is dying. But yeah, ever since last episode, I do feel like adding some extra details to the environment of a build is something that I want to do more and more of. I'm used to just making the build itself and then doing nothing else to make it fit into the environment. And I really don't care about making a story, but I think giving some context to your builds and reasons for things to be there just makes it look a lot better and makes it feel more lived in. Hopping into free cam, I can hopefully give you a better idea of what I'm talking about. But like 5 episodes back, we made these houses here, and you can kind of see it's just like the build by itself with nothing around them. Obviously, we've got the pathways here, and then I've since also added some trees to the background, so I think it helps create somewhat more of an environment, but it used to just be these houses on their own with nothing around them. But I think you can tell what I mean when I say that adding some extra detail like that goes a long way. And yeah, it's just something I'm trying to do more of. I think a really good example of this is this temple that I made in episode 6. So the temple itself is really, really nice. I love it. It's one of my favorite builds that I've ever done. But the mountain that it's residing on is really, really boring. And besides the build here, yeah, there's not very much going on. And of course, it does house my creeper farm. But it is one of my goals to eventually work on this mountain and make it look a lot better. Of course, the best example is this house that we built in the last episode. And you can kind of see how it drives its own narrative. So somehow something caught on fire around here. Looking at the tree that Mchmu designed, it kind of looks like maybe a lightning bolt hit the tree and then caught like this area on fire, and that's why it burned down. And then you have the scaffolding to kind of sell that it's being in the process of being rebuilt. So just little things like that to help give it some context and reason for being there are really nice. But yeah, those are just some ways I'm trying to currently improve my building. Anyways, that's going to be it for me today. I hope you all enjoyed the episode. As always, be sure to let me know what you think. I really enjoy reading all the comments, and with that, I'll end it here.